Two balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swing and a drive, deep left field. It's his way back. Walk him off.
What's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined tonight by Anthony Witrado, here to break down a Dodgers loss 6-2 to the Phillies. Anthony, it's a weird one. There's some positives, there's some negatives, there's some heartbreaking stuff to get to, obviously, with Brusdar Graterol's injury. But at the end of the day, the Dodgers offense just can't get it done. Only 7 hits against the Phillies tonight, only 2 runs across. And this one never never felt super competitive to me.
No, it didn't. Not until, I actually thought it was fine until, what was it, that 5th inning that Kershaw sort of labored through and only got 2 outs. And then it felt like when they did score those couple of runs that like there was a lot of deflation there. Yeah. Is what it felt like, right? And then Graterol's situation just sort of added to that. And yeah, I mean, even the 7 hits, 2 runs on 7 hits is not a lot. I mean, you figure a team like this with their slug, you get 7 hits, you might get 4-5 runs out of that sometimes, just a little lifeless in that sense. But Kershaw promising, and felt like everything else was just sort of a little demoralizing.
Yeah. This game was 0-0 into the 5th inning when Kershaw gives up that run. We'll get into that. The Dodgers fall behind 4-0 in the 6th. They scratch 1 back, then they scratch another in the 8th, and immediately give 2 more back in the 9th and lose this one 6-2. 14 hits for the Phillies. Dodgers pitching between Kershaw and basically Brent Honeywell end up giving up the bulk. Honeywell gives up 8 hits and a walk in 3 2/3. We'll get to the decision to just kind of put him in the Michael Grove role and just let him wear this one. Unfortunately, I believe they said it was the most innings, the most pitches he's thrown at any point in his career. And so a tough spot for him. Obviously, the Graterol injury threw the Dodgers bullpen off. As always, we appreciate everybody joining us on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. We appreciate you if you're listening after the fact, either on YouTube or via Apple, Spotify, and Google on your podcast platform of choice. We appreciate you as well. Again, this is Dodger Heads, presented by DodgerBlue.com. Let's start at the beginning with Clayton Kershaw, Anthony, because for a while, I thought this was going to be the storyline of this game. You and I were texting before the game, and I was basically like, I can't handle another Kershaw blow up and having to do the post-game show. If anybody's seen this show before, they know how much I love Clayton Kershaw. He feels like a family member to me. Like, I think when I watch Clayton Kershaw, this must be what it feels like to watch your son or your brother compete, just because I feel like the ups and downs of his career, I feel them emotionally because I'm just a huge fan of his. And so I didn't know what we were going to get. You and I were on here last time. He kind of scuffled through one of these, and he was a lot better tonight. 1 start after having 0 strikeouts. He gets a strikeout on the very first batter tonight, and that kind of set the tone for the rest of his evening.
Yeah, he had some pretty good swing and miss stuff early on. Yeah. I thought that he looked much sharper and that the command was better. And I think he was just keeping hitters off balance a lot more with that slider. That curveball was working. You saw him buckle a couple of people with it. Kyle Schwarber included with a nice one. So, yeah, I thought that, that was a promising outing for him. He labored through that 5th inning. I think he was at, just north of 75 pitches or something around there.
Yeah.
So he's still got some buildup to do, obviously, but for what he was able to give them, I thought it was pretty promising. And, if they're able to get that kind of Kershaw the rest of the way, that's going to be a big plus for them.
Yeah, final line, 4 2/3, 5 hits, 1 earned, no walks, 5 strikeouts. He ends up generating 10 whiffs. Again, last start, just 2. He gets 5 strikeouts to start after having 0. 26% called and swinging strikes for him. I mean, heading into that 5th inning, Anthony, he had allowed just 3 base runners over the first 4. He gives up a 1-out double to Hayes. And then there's a weird at bat with Jake Marsh where it's an 0-2 count and he takes a hit by pitch.
That was the one that
looked like it went off the end of the bat to me. And
I wondered if they were going to challenge that. I thought it was a little, it was probably a little inconclusive from the angles that we saw. But yeah, I mean, I thought that was the big one, and you could see it in his face. Like that was just, it's not something that he does. And to lose a guy 0-2 like that when you're kind of cruising, really, I think just sort of it kind of sent everything not completely off the rails for him, but it definitely forced him to take a little detour.
Yeah. So now all of a sudden you've got 2 on with 1 out. He gets a strikeout to get to 2 outs, and then it's Schwarber up. And I was honestly pretty surprised at that point that the lineup turning over 2 guys on, 4 2/3. Like, do you just go to the bullpen there? Obviously, it's lefty against lefty. Schwarber's been great against lefties this year for his career. He's been bad against lefties. And honestly, it's hard to argue with it considering Kershaw gives up basically a blooper. It just happens to be to center field. Kevin Kiermaier, the platinum gold glove winner out there. Like I'm thinking, can we get a play there? Like, you're in the game to make that play, because anybody could take that off one hop. He can't get to it, and it's 1-0. Thankfully, Joe Kelly gets out of it. But again, 4 2/3, 5 hits, 1 earned, no walks, 5 strikeouts. I guarantee you there's not a single person on the face of the earth, except for maybe Clayton Kershaw, that was expecting a line as encouraging as that tonight, Anthony. All of us, after last game, where he's at in his career against the Phillies, I mean, we would have been thrilled with like 4 innings, 3 earned, I think, and he gave us a lot more than that.
Yeah, you come off that last start and not so much just what the final line was in terms of runs allowed, but the fact that he didn't have a strikeout and only 2 swings and misses, that was way more concerning for me. And so, was really curious to see how he was going to bounce back tonight. And like you said, if he would have been not great, that would not have been a shock to me. And then we would have been having probably a different conversation, even with everything that had gone on tonight. But the fact that he was able to deliver for them, again, promising. It was a promising start for him. I think that outing maybe gets a little bit overshadowed by the loss just in general, and then the Graterol situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. One more note on Clayton Kershaw, something to monitor going forward. I looked at last start versus this start from a pitch mix perspective. Last time I was on here on Kershaw's start, I was talking about the issue was command. The fastball, he had no idea where it was going, and so they were just sitting on the slider. Fastball command better tonight, but the usage changed a little bit. He went from 40% sliders last time out to 47% sliders tonight. Fastball usage down from 39 to 33. Curveball usage up from 12 to 19%. So it's just something to keep an eye on. Does he actually try and shift that a little bit, going away from the fastball, more sliders, more curveballs? Obviously, both of those pitches looked pretty good tonight. I thought all of his pitches looked good. I felt like he was in command of the strike zone, and this is the recipe for Kershaw. Like, if there's going to be any semblance of success, this was what it's going to look like. It's not necessarily going to be overpowering. It's obviously not going to be dominant. It's going to be weak contact. It's going to be critical swings and misses and breaking balls when he needs them. And that's kind of the hope. And I'll say this, like, I'm an optimistic guy. I'm a hopeful guy. I started to lose some of that with Kershaw on the last outing, and I'm not all the way back after one good outing, but this is kind of what I envisioned Kershaw being able to do, is just kind of grind and sort of slop his way to 5 innings, 1 earned, 5 innings, 2 earned type performances throughout the season. Now, can he string 2 or 3 of these together? Dave Roberts said before the game, hey, we want to give him 5 starts before we evaluate him. Now he's at 3. So if the trend continues like we saw tonight against the Phillies, the best team in the National League, then it's promising. And I think Clayton Kershaw is going to be making a push for a conversation that a lot of Dodger fans don't want to have, which is Kershaw potentially making a push for something like a playoff rotation spot.
Yeah, look, their options are limited right now. I know Yamamoto threw the bullpen today, and that's promising. But given where they're at right now, they're going to have to lean on any live arm that they have. And live, not meaning that, he's pumping it in there at 96 again, but that 90, 91, 92, as long as he's got a good pitch mix and you keeping guys off balance, that's going to work. It worked tonight against a pretty good lineup. And so, again, I think the best way for me to describe it was that it was promising. I'm with you. I'm not all the way back on him yet. We still got to see some more, but this was a really good start in that direction.
All right, let's get to some super chats here. As always, we appreciate the folks leaving those super chats. We will get to those as soon as we can. 300 GJW, Will Smith on his annual second half slump. It's really bad for Will Smith. The last at bat, 2-seamer that, looked nasty, but you can't go down staring at a 2-seamer that basically comes all the way back across the plate and borderline in the middle. I don't know how to explain it. Like, he just doesn't seem like himself right now. And the Dodgers need him, clearly. Like, with Mookie Betts out, with Muncy out, they can't afford to have their best players that are actually healthy struggling. But Will Smith, the way he's struggling right now, is it's a tough watch, Anthony.
Yeah, and I haven't seen anything. I may have missed it. I'm not saying no one's reported it or written anything, but I haven't seen anything on like what they think it might be. Is it, if he's just exhausted, if they feel like it's something mechanical, I don't know. I have not seen anything in terms of an explanation for why he's been so bad for so long now at this point, because it's been a while. He's had, a couple of hot stretches mixed in there, but it's been a while now that he's been bad. And yeah, I'm curious because it's been so prolonged, just sort of what they feel it is, because obviously they're not giving him much rest. They keep running him out there at a pretty consistent pace. And so, it's concerning at this point. That's for sure. He's a catcher. He goes through this stuff in the second half, that part of it's not surprising. All everyday catchers do. But like I said, given how prolonged this has been, I think it's safe to be concerned.
3 for his last 43, Will Smith at this point, which is, that's a horrific number. He's 1 for his last 21, 1 for his last 21, 3 for his last 43. So the Dodgers are going to need him to bounce back. We've seen him pop out of these slumps. It's just a matter of if and when at this point. Todd with the super chat. Kershaw looked good. Heartbroken for Graterol. Honeywell likely gone tomorrow. We'll get to the Graterol injury. We'll get to the Honeywell piece as well. I don't know if he's going to be gone tomorrow, if only because he doesn't have options. And Michael Grove's probably coming to take Graterol's spot in the bullpen. I don't know if they've got more arms lined up to come take Honeywell's spot. So Honeywell, he might be around for a little while. We'll get into that in a little bit. But Todd, we appreciate it. I'm with you. Kershaw did look good. I think that's, if you want to sort of take one positive out of what we saw tonight, it's a reassuring Clayton Kershaw start that maybe begins to drop some seeds of belief that there might be something there. Richard with the super chat as well. Felt like Dave let Honeywell out there to die, saving arms for tomorrow's game due to Stone's struggle. Offense was like watching paint dry. So we've had a couple of these super chats. Let's just get into Honeywell. 3 2/3. I mentioned 8 hits, 3 earned, 1 walk, 1 strikeout. Obviously, by the time Honeywell came into this game, it was 1-0. By the first inning he comes in, Graterol gets technically charged with the 2 earned runs. Honeywell lets both of those guys come in. So by the time Honeywell has finished the first 2/3 of an inning, it's 4-1 at that point. They cut the lead in the 8th to 4-2, and then they left Honeywell in there. I was going back to see kind of what was the usage the last few days as far as like maybe why they decided to go this route. And last night, Kopech, Banda, and Hudson were the 3 pitchers who pitched in relief for the Dodgers. Prior to that, it was Phillips, Trinan, Vesia, Hudson, and Banda. And then the night before that was the 10-0 victory. And so that was when you had Kopech, Trinan, and Kike Hernandez. So you look through that, just 3 relievers used last night, 4 relievers used the night before. Did you feel like it? I guess what I'm getting at, Anthony, is I think they had guys available if they needed them. They just chose not to. What were your thoughts on that decision from Dave Roberts tonight?
I was surprised. I wasn't surprised that he went back out for the first inning after he came in. It was after that. I didn't really understand. I did the same thing that you did. I started looking at like who was available, what usage looked like in the recent days. And I didn't see anything that necessarily stuck out that said like, yeah, these guys are off limits, right? Like, it would be somebody's 3rd day in a row or something like that. And so, it was curious because my first thought was like, oh, okay, he's trying to buy innings here for the bullpen. Yeah. And then, that's when I got on the phone and was like, what's this look like? And then when I saw what I saw, same thing you just said, I was a little like, oh, okay, like then what's the strategy here? Because this isn't at a point where you're giving up the game. And so, it was curious. I didn't understand that one at all. That was not something that I necessarily agreed with or thought was the best strategy.
Yeah. Because you had Banda and Hudson, who I believe had pitched 2 nights in a row. Obviously, Trinan's on the injured list. Graterol and Joe Kelly both get used early tonight. Graterol leaves that game injured. You've got Evan Phillips, who pitched a third of an inning 2 nights ago. Obviously, they're going to be safe with Evan Phillips, and you're probably not trying to burn Evan Phillips in a game in which you're down by, at that point, 2 runs. You've got Alex Vesia, who pitched an inning two outings ago. But again, like, I guess my point, Anthony, is we saw what this bullpen looked like a week ago. So yeah. I kind of don't hate the decision to just keep trotting Honeywell out there and say, it's 4-2. Can we get out of this? Of course, the answer is no. He gives up 2 more runs. It ends up being 6-2. But just knowing who the Phillies had in their bullpen, hoping that Honeywell can buy you time, and playing the long game here, where we don't want to burn Vesia and put unnecessary innings on his arm. We don't want to burn Phillips. Like, let these guys build their confidence back up, put them in situations to succeed. So I'll be honest, maybe this is a zag. I actually didn't hate the decision. Obviously, it didn't work out. But, like, let me ask the people that are criticizing this decision, like, did you really think the Dodgers were going to score 2 runs in the 9th inning off of Estevez in this one? Like, they weren't even, sniffing most of this. So I understand the criticism. I guess I'm like 55-45. I'm fine with it, I think, is where I land.
Yeah, I was I was a little bit like that too. I wasn't like up in arms, but it was curious enough that, we both checked what was going on with the other guys. Look, if he could have gotten away with it, that would have been a huge win for the rest of the bullpen, I thought. And so the best I could come up with was that's what Dave was going for, thinking, you know what, if I can buy this right here and I can get another inning out of him, it's going to go a long way.
Yeah.
Wasn't able to do it. And so now we're talking about it, but I guess I'm with you. It wasn't like, I wasn't throwing the remote control at the TV or anything like that. I just thought it was like, I don't know that I agree with that, but okay, let's see how it goes.
Yeah. And to Richard's point, Gavin Stone due to pitch tomorrow, a guy who has struggled mightily of late. And so if you're not really positive you're going to get more than 4 or 5 innings at the most from Gavin Stone, you maybe live to fight another day. Pred 439, Honeywell did his job. Dave gave up 4-2, typical. And there is something to be said for Honeywell. Career high in innings, career high in pitches, I believe, are what are mentioned. So, it's the same thing. Michael Grove used to do this. It's like, kudos to him for going out there and wearing it and getting through all the way to the end of this game. Obviously, he gives up those 2 bombs in the 9th. I should say 1 bomb and 1 just freaking brutal, like, guy late on a fastball up and just happens to catch it right and poke it over that short right field fence. But, again, Honeywell preserves the bullpen, lives to fight another day. And again, the Dodgers down at the time that decision was made. Anyways, Larry with the super chat here. Dusty Baker having his own bobblehead night. Would he be more revered as a Dodger if he didn't have management tenures with the Giants and Astros? You and I are about the same age, Anthony. Dusty Baker's a funny one for me because I only remember him as the Giants manager, mostly the Giants manager during those Bond era teams, but then the Astros as well. So it's not like I dislike Dusty Baker, but it is hard for me to shake that my first indelible memories of Dusty Baker are as a Giant.
Yeah, I'm with you. He feels like a Dodger for our parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
People
Good way of putting it.
who are 20 years older than us at least, and those are the people who sort of remember Dusty Baker in a Dodger uniform. I remember him well with the Reds, actually. That was during my time on the beat, and spending most of my time covering the National League Central. I got to know him fairly well. Super nice guy. Love Dusty Baker as a person. But yeah, I'm with you. Like, I think when I think Dusty Baker, the Dodgers is not the first thing that I think. And I
Barry
think that's
Bonds is the first thing I think of when I think of Dusty Baker, which that ain't a positive memory. I can tell you that.
Yeah. So yeah, it is interesting. I think people in our generation and younger, obviously don't remember those days, but from what I've read and what I've been told, he was a fantastic Dodger. So sorry we missed that, right, Jeff?
Yeah, exactly. I see most people, it seems like, agreeing with us. Hawaiian Kira asking, basically, am I the old one in here? Remembering Dusty Baker as a Dodger. Pred 439, buying time is 2, maybe 3 innings, not almost 4. Again, I would just say the context here. So Kershaw can't get out of the fifth. They go to Joe Kelly. He only pitches a third of an inning. That tells me right there that Dave Roberts is competing for this game. If he's going to Joe Kelly in the fifth, he's not waving the white flag. I think the equation shifts, when Brusdar Graterol then goes out. So you're at 5 1/3. You need 3 2/3 left. You've already burned 2 arms. You've probably got 3 guys that were down to begin the game. So now, in an 8-man bullpen, you're basically down to 3 dudes. Let's say it's Phillips, Vesia, and Honeywell are the only 3 guys available for the Dodgers, which is possible. And then Honeywell gives up 2 runs in that 5th inning. So now it's 4-1. Like, I just don't like, I understand. I can get to a place like the way he used Kelly and Graterol tells me he wasn't waving the white flag until Graterol got injured. And then until Honeywell gave up those 2 runs in that 5th inning. And then all of a sudden it's like, if he would have burned Phillips and Vesia in this game, and then tomorrow night, it's like, Michael Grove coming in the 9th inning of a 1-run game, people be losing their minds. So I think it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation for Dave, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily agree with the decision, and I think the super chat's right. Like, stretching him that far is, I mean, you're playing with fire at that point.
Yeah.
It's the luck is going to end at somewhere. But again, like you said, he's in a situation where his options are really limited.
Yeah.
And he's got to manage, also for the days ahead. And so, he's a lot of this is playing on feel and some hope. And, Dave's feel for a bullpen isn't the best in baseball.
Yeah.
I think most Dodger fans would agree. And so, I think he got caught trying to get too much out of Honeywell. But
again, I mean, they were losing. Sure. So it's like, I hear that, but again, it's like, it was 4-2 going into the 9th inning. So like the alternative is you burn Evan Phillips there, and then Philadelphia hands the ball over to one of the best closers in baseball. And by the way, Phillips and Vesia a week ago weren't exactly inspiring much more confidence than Brett Honeywell 50 pitches into his outing here, So I just think there's a mixed bag here. No matter what they do here, I envision there being some form of what are we doing happening after the fact.
For sure. A lot of this is where the roster's at right now, where the bullpen is at right now. That has a lot to do with it. And Kershaw, sort of hitting a wall. I know the Dodgers have a short leash on their starters, especially in the regular season. But, if he's of normal health, I guess you could say, if he's not just coming back from this injury, they can probably leave him out there for a little longer than they did. And maybe we're not having this exact conversation, but with you, I didn't fully hate the decision. But it can also be true that he left him out there a little too long. And it's very true that he's working with what he has right now.
Thursday, by the way, an off day, and then the Dodgers play 13 consecutive games starting on Friday. So I imagine these are all factors that are being weighed. 300 problem is the 8-game lead is down to 3.5, and the 2 teams chasing us are on fire. Wins or wins. Yeah, that's why this one overall, like the Dodgers lost this game. Nobody's sugarcoating that. I just don't think Honeywell was the guy because they scored 2 runs. So Honeywell could have been lights out and they still would have lost this game based on that. And so again, it comes back to the offense, Anthony, and you look at the lineup that the Dodgers put out there tonight. Ohtani, Teoscar, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith. Those are 4 guys that traditionally you feel pretty good about. Obviously, Will Smith, we talked about how bad he's been. Rosario, a guy that I've been clamoring for. He goes 0 for tonight. Kike 1 for 4. Pages had a nice game, 2 for 3 with a walk. Ahmed 1 for 3. Kiermaier 0 for 2 at the bottom. And so, you look at the hit total, 7 hits, not terrible. You expect better from this team, this franchise. But I mean, as long as Kiermaier and Ahmed are at the bottom of this lineup, like it's not going to be 8-run wins all the time. You're going to be trying to scrape and claw for this. And when Ohtani goes 0 for 4 and Will Smith goes 0 for 4, I mean, that top 4 goes 3 for 12. Like I know Teoscar's 2 for 4 with the home run and a double, but ultimately it's 3 for 12 from the top 4 guys in the top at the top of the order. And when you look at the 5 through 9 and it's Rosario, Kike, Pages, Ahmed, and Kiermaier, you need better than 4 for 12 at the top. 3 for 12.
It's arguable that of those 5 guys, like, it's arguable that none of them should be in the big leagues at this point.
Yeah.
At least as hitters. And so when that's what you're working with.
Right. Where are you at on Kiermaier? Like I'm just out. Like I've been told about the defense, but again, I'm looking and I'm like, if you're not good enough to catch that ball that drops in front of you and Kershaw, which is an impossible play, okay? But I'm like, unless you're that good, what are we doing here? He's so bad offensively.
Yeah. Well, we could have Pages and have him do what he did the night before.
No, I'm with you. Look, right now, fair. The point is well taken with Edman and Mookie and all these guys out. It's well taken. I just hope his stay as a Dodger is brief, and I hope that retirement that was expected to come at the end of the season, as a Dodgers fan, I hope it comes a little bit sooner.
Yeah. I'm out on him also. You hope that he saves you a game or two while he's here with his glove.
Again, I'm watching it. I'm like, that's the play. You dive for that ball, save my guy Clayton Kershaw from giving up the run, and I'll give you some leeway. He could have had it. He just got a bad read, slow jump, and it bounced like 4 feet in front. I'm like, dude, if you dive for that ball and it goes to the wall, I'll let you live. Like your platinum glove, you can't hit a lick. You have to be diving for that ball. What are we doing?
Anyway, yeah, we're like 3 years too late on that.
No,
move.
I know, but that's the thing. If we're 3 years too late, then what are we doing here? The guy's hitting 188 with a 232 on base. 232 is his on base percentage. Unbelievable. John Bleeding Blue, I'm glad you brought this up. Pages throwing out Harper set off some earthquakes. There was like a 5.1 based out of Bakersfield. How about Pages? 95.5 mile an hour cannon from right field. No hops, right on the money. A little Yasiel Puig-esque out there.
Yeah, maybe he should have came in for Honeywell.
Yeah, seriously. I wish they hadn't gotten rid of all that position player stuff. You got to be down by 6 or up by 10 or whatever the nonsense is. Let position players pitch. 300 GJW. Barnes is our right-handed pinch hitter is not a good option. Yes. I also read somebody on Twitter. I didn't look into it. I think it was it Strom that he faced? Has reverse splits also. So it was a lefty. They bring in the righty Barnes to hit against him. And apparently Strom's better against righties than he is against lefties. It's like, what are you going to do? You know, I mean, look, but who do you want? Like, is it Hayward? Is it Lux is the guy that you'd want there, but he's a lefty. And other than that, it's Hayward, who's terrible. And it's, who else am I missing? Gosh, why am I blanking? Outman. Those two guys are awful right now too. So Barnes is probably the best option against a lefty there, but it's tough. Although somebody told me today, Anthony, that Austin Barnes has a better batting average than about 15 guys on the Dodgers roster. So if you love batting average, Barnes is your guy.
Right. One thing that was a little curious, and look, the situation is what the situation was, probably a little unique, but like when Will Smith has an off day, it's like the world has to be falling apart for Dave to even look in his direction as a pinch hitter.
No, I know.
And like,
I tweeted this.
Barnes, it's like
the number of times we've needed Will Smith. Yes. Go for it. Sorry.
And it's just like, dude, if you're doing that with your other catcher in games that he's not playing, why don't you do it with the guy who's the better offensive player in those games, in those leverage situations when you need him? It was just, I don't know, whatever.
No, I tweeted the same thing. I said every time we've needed Will Smith as a pinch hitter, it's been like, oh, they only have 2 catchers on the roster and they need to save it in case of emergency. And it's like the first freaking day Austin Barnes is hitting above 240. It's like they can't wait to get this guy into games as a pinch hitter. It's like the 7th inning. They're like, yeah, we'll pinch hit. We'll take our chances with Will Smith behind the dish. That cracks me up. Anyways. All right, let's get to a couple more updates here because let's talk Graterol. We haven't talked Graterol yet. Strained left hamstring is the report that we have received from the Dodgers. If you missed the game tonight, Brusdar Graterol, who has missed the first 4 months of this season, comes back in, 8 pitches in, grabs, was it his right hamstring? Maybe it was a right hamstring. Right hamstring.
It was right. Yeah.
Grabs the right hamstring and just immediately head down. You could see the emotion that he's wearing. He ends up basically getting carried off the field by Kike Hernandez, and the trainer has to be carried down the dugout steps through the dugout. I tweeted, I can't imagine what the last 4 months have been like for this guy practicing on his own, working out on his own, training on his own, going out on a rehab assignment, God knows where. And then to get back all the way to where you hope to be in your first appearance, 8 pitches, and to reach down. Now, I'm hopeful it's a hamstring. I was afraid it was a knee. I'm hopeful it's a hamstring. Doesn't mean it's good, but the hamstring at least is not like 12 months. So I'm hopeful this is accurate, but who knows at this point?
I mean, that reaction did not. And look, I understand there's a lot of emotion. His first game back after not being, after not pitching all season. That reaction didn't feel like a guy who thought his hamstring was strained.
Yeah, it's true.
And I haven't been on Twitter since we've gotten on here, so I don't know what the latest updates are. There's some different things in the chats, but I don't know if people are just speculating or what. But this feels like he knew he was done for the year, regardless of what it is. But the way he was not able to put weight on it and not able to walk, needed help. I mean, that felt like, something was hanging off the bone or something like that. It didn't feel like a pull or a strain. It felt like something worse at least that he knew maybe it was worse. And maybe it's a severe strain and he just knows there's not enough time to come back. I don't know. But it did not feel, based on that reaction, like it was just a strain. And I mean, boy, that's a blow. That's a blow.
Yeah. I see Dodger Blue in the chat. Grade 3 hamstring. Pretty severe hamstring is what Fabian Ardaya tweeted out. Dave Roberts didn't want to speculate on his availability the rest of the year, but safe to say it's going to be a while. Blake Williams, our guy there, tweeting grade 3 hamstring strain. So long road back ahead of him. Blake clarifies grade 3 is a complete tear of the hamstring.
Okay,
Michael
that's
Grove.
a tear.
Yeah,
that's a tear.
So Michael Grove expected to take his spot. And if it's a tear, then he's toast.
He's done.
Yeah. So tough stuff.
I don't think it necessarily matters for this season, but hopefully it's a situation where he doesn't need surgery, because depending on how bad the tear is, they may have to go in.
Yeah. Clayton Kershaw responding to the injury, quote, "We all feel for him. He loves to pitch, loves to be out there, loves to be with us. It's sad. If this is a season ender, that's really hard, obviously." And again, if grade 3 is accurate, then it's definitely a season ender. You're not coming back from a torn hamstring in the next couple of months, especially with all the movement and stuff that's going on for a guy like Graterol throwing 100 miles an hour. So tragic stuff for Graterol. And again, I mean, just watching the emotion on his face when that all took place, Anthony, I think is the hardest point, because again, I'm just imagining this is a guy that has worked so hard to get back to the major leagues after missing the first 4 months of the season. And it's like one thing after another going wrong for this guy. And then first game, I mean, we've seen it happen before, but 8 pitches, man, you could just see it all hit him. And it's like, you've got to be kidding me. It's the only thing I can imagine that's running through his mind.
Yeah, it was brutal. I mean, you could even see it on the faces of the Phillies. Baseball players know they know what other guys are going through, even if they're not in the same division or even friends with that person. They know, and they know that it was Graterol's first game back, and to see that and to see his reaction, I mean, looked like they were heartbroken.
Yeah. The look on Schwarber's face, honestly, it was one of those moments where I was like, I like Schwarber more, because even as an opposing player in the dugout, you could tell it's just like, gosh, dang it. Like, it was like, I hate this, was basically the vibe from him on the opposing team against a team that's your greatest competition in the National League. So in a candid moment, by the way, where, he's probably not thinking cameras on me, I better pretend.
Sure.
It was genuine. Like, gosh, dang it. So if there's good news for the Dodgers, it's that we were already talking about how are they going to fit all these pitchers onto their roster and a postseason roster, and Graterol was an unproven commodity. And so, if there's a small sliver of hope, it's that now it's 12 pitchers competing for 8 spots instead of 13 pitchers competing for 8 spots. But obviously Graterol was a guy that raises the ceiling of this bullpen, and he's not going to be out there at any point for the Dodgers the rest of the season, it doesn't sound like. So as always, we appreciate everybody joining us live. Let me do a quick shout out to our sponsor, So Rare MLB. Click the link in our description to sign up. Totally free to play So Rare MLB. This is fantasy baseball with digital player collectible cards. Draft your team, draft as many Dodgers as you want, basically, and compete. Obviously, Dodgers offense, if you had any of those guys tonight, it wasn't a great night for you. I saw some people in the chat. Framber Valdez might have had some value right up until the 8 2/3 mark when Corey Seager took him deep. Tough stuff for the Astros. We all feel, oh no, we don't feel terrible at all for the Houston Astros, but they had a no-hitter if you missed it going into the ninth with 2 outs in the ninth inning. Valdez with a no-hitter gives up a 2-run bomb to Corey Seager. So Astros still win, sadly, but shout out to Corey Seager. If you had him in your so rare lineup, if you had Valdez in your so rare lineup, those both would have been guys that would have helped you out. So again, click the link in the description to sign up. Totally free to play. So rare MLB. Own your game. Some more injury updates to get to here, Anthony, that are pretty significant, and maybe injury updates as well as just kind of updates on the future for the Dodgers. Prior to the game, Dave Roberts was talking about Mookie Betts and the future that he sees for Mookie Betts. And we've talked on this show, what position is Mookie Betts going to be playing? Second base seems to be locked down by Gavin Lux, who's one of the best hitters on the Dodgers right now. The question was, would Mookie Betts move to the outfield? I had gone as far as to speculate, man, could they throw him in center field to solve some of these problems? Dave Roberts says he sees Mookie Betts at shortstop when he returns. That was the news. The second piece of news is that he's going to be batting second and not leadoff. Let's start with the shortstop piece of this, Anthony. Were you surprised that Dave Roberts was as definitive that Mookie Betts will be shortstop when he comes back in the next couple of weeks?
Not necessarily. I think your better offensive options are in the outfield. So that always sort of lended me to think that he'd be still in the infield.
Yeah.
Now, I thought it was possible he'd be playing second base, but with Lux coming on, he's making that a non-issue.
Yeah.
So yeah, I always thought that it was going to be him in the infield, because just for the simple fact that at the moment, the better offensive potential is still in the outfield than it is in the infield. So that part of it didn't necessarily surprise me. They don't have a fix for that particular situation right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, this clarifies a lot, because this basically says, all right, if you can pencil Mookie Betts into shortstop, you can pencil Tommy Edman in as your everyday center fielder. Gavin Lux is going to be playing second base against righties. Ahmed Rosario will play second base against lefties. So basically the only question, presuming Max Muncy is back at third base, the only question is, what are they going to do in the corner outfield spots? Obviously, Teoscar is going to have one of those, but the other one is up for grabs. I speculated initially that Rosario would be hitting against righties out there. Dave Roberts apparently has no interest in that. He's spoken highly about Kike Hernandez, so maybe it's Kike Hernandez in against lefties. And then I honestly think a guy who's been struggling of late but had a good night tonight, I think Andy Pages could be the other guy. He's been the Dodgers arguably one of their best hitters against righties. I believe he's hitting over 300 against righties on the season. So I could see Kike and Pages kind of being a platoon out there, and then the Dodgers lineup suddenly becomes set. Now, the reason I was surprised with Mookie Betts at shortstop is because is a Pages/Kike platoon in the outfield a better overall option than Miguel Rojas at shortstop, who is, by the way, expected to be back in a utility role shortly? But is Miguel Rojas at shortstop and Mookie Betts in right field? Is that not a better overall option than Mookie with average defense at shortstop and then a Pages, Kike Hernandez corner infield platoon?
I mean, it just depends. I mean, it was like 10 days ago where we were saying that Kike Hernandez shouldn't be on this team anymore.
It's true.
So, I think it just depends on what everybody's doing. Pages has been terrible, but lightning in a bottle, he can catch one on the barrel and he gives you a little bit of pop. Rojas he was already on the downhill swing offensively. We talked about people who were wanting him to play every day earlier in the season when everybody else was healthy, or at least relatively healthy, was like, if you keep running him out there, eventually, you're going to get the returns that we expected to get. And that had already started to happen. So again, I don't think there's a great fix either way. I think just the better of the bad options is leaving him in the infield for now.
Yeah, and
Now,
I think, look, if Rojas comes back and hits a little bit, which, look, I said at the beginning, I couldn't believe Rojas was on this roster. He's one of the worst offensive players in baseball. He's been great. Him and Austin Barnes. Whoever wants to criticize the Dodgers coaches, have you seen what they turned Miguel Rojas and Austin Barnes into? These guys are like borderline average to above average offensive players this year. But I think if Rojas can come back and continue hitting, now if he's a utility role, maybe that isn't in his future, but I could just see a world where you value the defense at shortstop of Miguel Rojas. You don't want a Mookie Betts error on a routine ground ball at some point, or trouble turning a double play or something like that. Put Mookie in right field. We know he hasn't played a ton out there, but he knows that like the back of his hand, even if he's average to above average out there now. I just wonder if that's where this thing lands. I think for now, Pages, Kike, those types of guys are going to be in the mix, but I just wonder if Rojas can come back and hit, if he doesn't sort of squeeze himself back into that playing time equation.
If he hits, this is a different conversation. I think, though, that later on in the season, if they're playing some big games or in the playoffs, you could see some defensive replacement situations where, then maybe Mookie goes from short to right field, and, an outfielder comes to the bench and Rojas goes in, all of that kind of stuff, all of that, playing Jenga with the defensive lineup there. Possibly. Again, this is a dilemma that they have just based on sort of what's been going on with their roster. Yeah. And so, the dilemma is you have to choose between two things you don't necessarily want to choose between.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you're trying to choose the better of two bad choices. And again, Mookie is he a great shortstop? Not by any means, but he's about average. Yeah. For what he's been, based on the numbers, he's about average. He's not killing you. And I know, look, everything that we're going to remember about Mookie Betts playing shortstop for this season is going to be the bad, because of what it is. It's the nature of what we do. He hasn't been absolutely atrocious. He hasn't been. And I know that's not a great bar to be setting, but he's been fine. Like, you know what I mean? And so, again,
I just wonder in the postseason, we've seen the Dodgers value the defense, the sort of the value of defense become maximized because of the little things become magnified in those games. And so that's the part that scares me. Not that the moment's going to be too big for Mookie, but just if he is average. I mean, we saw Trey Turner, right? Trey Turner, when he was a shortstop for the Dodgers, he had those moments in the postseason where it was like, good Lord, this guy, he's all over the place. And so those are the things that just become one little missed opportunity here or there could play the difference. And so
we say that, but and I see some of the comments agreeing with you, and you're not. It's not that you're wrong. It's that then do we shut our mouths and be quiet when you have to run out?
No, I know.
Miguel Rojas, who maybe he's hitting a $112 at that time, or Ahmed Rosario, who might be hitting 211 at that. You know what I mean? Like, again,
no, Rosario's one of the best hitters in baseball, Anthony. You missed that part. He's a 120 weighted runs created plus guy.
My bad.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like you're going to lose something else if you do that.
Yeah.
And so what's the lesser of two evils there?
Yeah, I think that's the best way of putting it. You're either going to take high defensive bar with Rojas, but low offensive bar, or you're going to risk something defensively, believing that the bat of Pages or the bat of Kike against lefties is going to be like the difference maker for you. And so whether or not that plays out is something to be seen. One other note on this real quick. I'd love to get your thoughts. Mookie's not going to be hitting leadoff. I believe Daniel tweeted out Mookie has hit leadoff basically in every game he's played in since like 2021, I believe was the stat. Are you surprised that we're going to leave Ohtani in the leadoff hole and put Mookie at the 2? Or are you like a who cares type of guy?
I'm kind of a who cares guy.
Yeah.
In all honesty. If you have the best hitter in baseball, I'm all about getting him as many plate appearances as you can. Yeah. And people want us to talk about, you're going to take away RBI chances from him. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. Get him up as many times as you possibly can. There was a time too when everybody thought that your best hitter needed to hit 4th, which meant he might not hit in the first inning. So no, that's not something that I'm too concerned about. I am for them continuing to sort of break up the lefty righty stuff. So hitting Mookie second, not a big deal to me.
Yeah, fair. So that's the Mookie Betts update. Again, expected to play shortstop when he returns, expected to play hit second. Excuse me. You mentioned Yamamoto. Should be expected to throw again soon. Edmund going out on a rehab appearance. Muncy was taken, and Chris Taylor were taking ground balls before the game. So on the guys that didn't get injured tonight front, the injury news has mostly been positive, of course, all overshadowed by the Brusdar Graterol report from tonight. So let's get to some questions here. If you got any questions, throw those in the chat. All caps questions. Anthony, I've got a food question for you that I'm just going to ease into here. Okay. I heard this on a podcast, so I'm not taking credit for this question. It made me laugh, but I want to get your thoughts. Is macaroni and cheese pasta?
Like, are you talking like out of the box?
Just no explanations. Is macaroni and cheese pasta?
Yeah, it's pasta.
Yeah, okay. That's what I said. But I just heard the greatest argument, because one guy was like, if you told somebody you were serving pasta and put mac and cheese in front of them, they'd think you were a lunatic. So there you go. Is pasta salad pasta, Anthony?
Technically it's pasta. Yeah. I don't eat it. Great. But yeah, technically it's pasta, I guess. Yeah.
There you go. It's a great question. Is pasta salad pasta? It's so funny. It sounds like the stupidest question in the history of the world, but it's like the word pasta, the meaning of pasta, and our understanding of pasta. So there you go.
Yeah.
We're easing into questions. Here we go. Scott says, shouldn't Lux be playing every day with the lineup being as weak as it is right now? Rosario in for Ahmed, not Lux. Gavin Lux is one of the worst hitters in baseball against lefties. He's like a 33 weighted runs created plus. Like he makes Kevin Kiermaier look like a league average offensive player when Lux is in against lefties. So everybody here knows I'm the Gavin Lux guy. Never got off the bandwagon, held on to my stock, kept believing that the day was going to come when he was going to redeem himself. It ain't coming against lefties. He's a hit against righties type of a guy, which fortunately is about 75% of the time. But to answer this question, no, Gavin Lux should not be playing every day. Rosario's the perfect platoon guy for him.
Yeah, agree.
Kenny, hot dog, is it a sandwich, Anthony?
No.
Wow. Meat between two pieces of bread, huh?
I mean, there was a time where I think it was you who was making the argument that it had to be two pieces of bread to be considered a sandwich. Was that you?
Yeah, that probably sounds like something to me. I mean, does a pita count as a sandwich?
Does a Philly cheesesteak?
That's true. See, that's on a roll. That roll's no different than a hot dog bun.
Yeah, meatball sub typically is one, or a meatball sandwich is typically one piece.
It's a great point. That's a great point. See, I think the meatball sandwich is the bridge between hot dogs and sandwiches that maybe makes hot dogs a sandwich. I'm going with sandwich on that one. So
if we're getting into technicalities with macaroni and cheese and pasta salad, then the hot dog's a sandwich.
Yeah, there you go. I like that people are just going food immediately because I think that's what we need tonight. Tim G asks the easiest question in the history of the world, Anthony. Apple pie or pumpkin pie? I'll let you go first.
I prefer pumpkin pie.
Oh my gosh, what is wrong with you?
Apple pie sucks, dude.
Oh my gosh, that's the worst food opinion. That we've had some awful food opinions on this show. That's literally peak bad food opinion. Apple pie is the greatest food in the history of the world.
Bro.
Number one.
I got to take you out eating to some real places then if you think apple pie is the greatest food in the world.
Hot Dutch apple pie with a scoop of vanilla ice cream is the pinnacle of the human culinary experience.
Boy, get out a little more, Jeff.
We went pumpkin pie over apple pie to apple pie sucks. That's unbelievable. That's fantastic. Blake is officially off the hook. That's my least favorite food opinion. You should have had that apple pie sucks. That should have been your hot food take from a couple weeks ago. That's the hottest food take you have, Anthony, right there. Pencil it in.
I'm sure I have worse. I mean, that one to me is not that bad.
That's crazy.
Apple pie is let me say this. Maybe it doesn't suck, but it might be the most just absolutely overrated food.
Wow.
Like that exists then. Because if you're going to go that it's the best food ever, based on that comment, apple pie it's the Ahmed Rosario of food.
It's the pinnacle. It's the pinnacle. Apple pie, warm Dutch apple pie with vanilla ice cream. There we go. Dodger Blue chiming in. All pies suck. I'm not. I like fruit pies. I'm trying to think. Like pumpkin pie is not my favorite. I'll do key lime pie, blueberry pie, berry pie of some sort I can get behind. But
Yeah,
I'm not.
I think I'm the opposite. Like if I ever do eat pie, which is incredibly rare, I tend to move away from the fruit
Are you a
pies.
no hot fruit person? This is my wife. She won't do any foods that have fruit that is like warm. She's out on.
No, it's not necessarily that for me.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll get to some baseball questions here. Aluya, do you think the front office will take a deep look into their training staff and rehab process after this incident? Too many injuries and failed rehabs for multiple championship runs. I'll let you take this first. I have a thought, but I'll give you the floor to start here. Do you think this is a organizational issue with the Dodgers?
I think it needs to be looked at.
Okay.
I do. I don't know if it's necessarily a situation where like heads have to roll. I don't know about that. I'm not around the team enough to have a real opinion on that. But I do think that they need to reassess at the very least what their philosophies are, sort of what their long-term strategies are for these kinds of things. And they need to ask themselves, is this just bad luck? Or is it something, is this a negative trend that other teams are not experiencing? Because that's the other thing too. At this point, I don't pay enough close attention to other teams to know what they're going through necessarily. And so I think you need to look at it in that context as well. But I will say that I'm in the belief, and I have been now for a while, that this entire situation needs to be assessed. If again, I don't know that anyone needs to be fired. I don't even know if anything needs to change because I don't have enough of that context at this point.
Yeah.
But I do think it needs to be looked at.
Yeah. I wonder if I think the Dodgers just are okay taking on injury risk in a way that other organizations don't. Like, I think if you look at Graterol being an outlier to this, he's 25 years old. Like, sure. I mean, although you watch him pitch and it's kind of like you're almost waiting for injuries to happen because it just the physics seems like it doesn't make sense the way he's able to get torque on his body. But like you look at a guy like Trinan getting hurt, they signed up for that risk, like Clayton Kershaw getting hurt. You sign up for that risk. Some of these guys, I feel like they just accept a level of injury risk because, and I've said this before, the philosophy from players is, as far as acquiring players, is quality over quantity. Like they want the guys that the ceiling is highest, even if the risk matches the ceiling. Because if those guys get healthy come October, then they're going to be fine. So I just think it's part of that. I'm not saying that's all of it. Sure. I just think there's a large piece of it that is, we just are going to take chances on guys who maybe have a higher injury risk because we're comfortable with it. A, because we're going to build out depth through our farm system, and B, because even if they miss 2 months in the middle of the season, as long as they're ready for October, then we're good to go. So I'm sure they will look into it to answer this question. They evaluate all of this kind of thing. I think some of it is just built into the approach in a way that I understand if people don't like it, but I think it's just philosophically they're maybe okay with some of it. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. But it's not necessarily them going after risk guys. It's more like, and look, they're not going to tell the public everything. I understand that. But to be like, oh, yeah, Graterol has a hip thing.
Yeah.
And he's missing a bunch of time all of a sudden. And then the next time you hear anything about it, it was like, oh, actually, it was a shoulder.
Yeah. Yeah, that was weird. They've had a couple of those.
They had a few of those, right? And it's like, or, just like, really having misleading timetables on certain guys, like this Max Muncy thing. Like, I'm sorry, man, but I've been around the game a long time, and I know that obliques are not necessarily minor injuries, but like guys aren't missing this much time.
Yeah. No, we were on here. Blake and I were on at the day of the Muncy injury, and we laughed when he said he's going to miss the minimum. I think I said 36 days, and I undersold it. So Roberts was saying 10 days. I said 36, and here we are months later. And still no Max Muncy.
Yeah. So like, the guys who are, injury risk, Sure. I get it. Sign up for that when you sign them. I got it. But it's some of that other stuff. And it's just like, and again, I know there was a point this year where the Dodgers were like a top 3, top 5 kind of team in days missed. But I don't know enough about the rest of the league at this point to say like this is consistently a Dodger problem. It might be, they might be middle of the pack or something like that. I don't know, but yeah, I would love a story come the off season saying like, yes, they're reassessing what all this is.
Yeah. And who knows? Who knows if that's the case? Bob wants to know, can we talk about the bottom of the 7th? First and second, nobody out. 4-1 is the score. Ahmed up. He doesn't bunt. And then the pinch hitters are Austin Barnes, or excuse me, Barnes hits for Kiermaier, and Ohtani flies out. So again, that's Kike reaches on an infield single. Pages walks. You've got runners on first and second, down by 3, bottom of the 7th with Nick Ahmed up. He lines out. Barnes pinch hits for Kiermaier. It strikes out, and then Ohtani flies out to right. Any issues there with the way that the Dodgers approached that?
I'm not a fan of bunting generally, but there are some situations where I'm like, this guy's terrible, and so at least make a productive out. I don't know that I was there on necessarily when this situation popped up.
Yeah.
The way that offense is going, they can't really afford to be giving away outs. That's the other thing too, is like
you're bunting those guys over with Kiermaier's spot in the lineup and
Right.
Austin Barnes pinch hitting him for him coming
Right.
up. So it's like, we all joke about Austin Barnes' batting average. One thing he doesn't have is power. And I'm not talking about like home run power. I'm talking about like he might not have sack fly power on most of these days. So,
Yeah.
like I understand like in a vacuum, if it's 4-1, runners on first and second, Nick Ahmed up in the top of the order coming behind, I think it's a different situation. But with Kiermaier/Barnes hitting behind, I'm just taking my chances with Nick. Nick Ahmed's your best offensive player. He's better than the guy coming up behind him. So you don't bunt a guy who's, not very good, but better than the guy batting behind him,
Yeah. And also 1 run's not doing much. You're not chasing 1 there. If you're chasing 1, then maybe that's a different situation, but you need multiple runs at that point.
Yeah, it's a good point. THP wants to know, any concern with Mookie being rusty with making no rehab assignment? That's a report. He's going to play in some sim games and then come join the team. I'm a bit concerned with some bat speed and swing data on him this year. His first 30 games, 1.138 OPS. Next 42 games, 713 OPS. So any concern about no rehab assignment for Mookie Betts, just some simulated games and then straight back to the majors?
No, that's not that uncommon. Also, if we're going to point out, he was good for a while and then he was not good for a while, well, then let's not waste any of those plate appearances in the minors in Rancho. Let's just put him in uniform and let him get right there. No, I'm fine with it. Hitters are different than pitchers. And I think the fact that it was what the injury was, and that it wasn't like, a hamstring or like it was something like that. Like, I think they're probably feeling comfortable that he doesn't need to go on a rehab assignment. Obviously they are.
Yeah.
And yeah, no concern there for me that he's not doing that.
Yeah, I think he's got like an OPS of almost 900 on the season, a 150 weighted runs created plus. So, we could split sample sizes here and there, but Mookie Betts has been very good on the whole this season. And, we'll see. I mean, you might be onto something there with bat speed and swing data, but I don't think he lost all his bat speed after 30 games. Maybe pitchers are approaching him differently, and we'll see if that continues. But yeah, I mean, look, he's going to go face minor league pitchers in these sim games. He doesn't need to run around because it's a wrist injury, so he doesn't need to run around and get used to playing the field. Like, he just needs at bats, and you can do that in a simulated game. So I'll take my chances with that. Let's do one more question. This is kind of a fun one from History Man. Do you have a favorite baseball card or cards? Any favorite baseball cards for you, Anthony?
Yeah, I do. The Ken Griffey Jr. Upper Deck rookie card is, I think, my favorite card. It was. I remember growing up, it was like the stuff of legends. And I had 2 at one point. Yeah, that's probably the most memorable baseball card of my youth.
Yeah, fun fact, my dad has a few of the Ken Griffey Jr. rookie cards, and
Nice.
it's just a cool picture because it just
Yeah.
looks he looks so young in it, and obviously Ken Griffey Jr. goes on to have an incredible career. So that's a great pull. I mean, I collected cards, but nothing of value. My dad has a pretty awesome collection. I'm trying to think. It's mostly basketball stuff now that I think back outside of the Griffey cards. He's Nolan Ryan. I think he's got a Nolan Ryan rookie card as well. But yeah, I'm trying to think of if I
One
had
of
any.
the aside from cards, one of the things that I always was like, the things that you anticipate and look forward to as a kid was the release of like the latest Beckett.
Yep, 100%. And little did we know, Anthony, that when we were growing up, or I mean, I know you're a little older than me, I think, but when I was growing up and collecting cards, nothing was worth anything. Like it was like we all thought it was worth something, and they had just figured out if we just print 1 billion of everything, they're still going to buy them, and they'll actually just buy more of them.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's just hilarious looking back. Like my dad's generation, cards were worth something. My generation, I mean, there's a reason nothing made after like 1990 is worth pretty much anything. It's like 80s and earlier. Otherwise, it's nonsense. It's nonsense.
I do remember. So when I didn't collect cards for too long. I think like by the time I got to junior high, I was kind of done with it. But like one of my uncles got into it, and he got into it like where he wanted to go to the shows and sell and all that stuff. Like he was one of those dudes. And so for my 9th birthday, he got me a card binder. Remember those? It had the
Oh yeah.
Okay. So then in the middle of it was an Oral Hershiser card.
Okay.
And I believe it was like the pages were like 3x3.
Okay.
So in the middle slot was an Oral Hershiser card, and then 8 $1 bills surrounding it in the other ones.
Yeah.
So for my 9th birthday, I got 9 things in that way. And
Love it.
You look back at it, they were just, it was $8 in a probably a pretty worthless Oral Hershiser card, but I remember at the time it was cool as hell.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Todd with the super chat sending us out. Thanks, boys. Hey, we appreciate you guys. Again, we know these losses, they start to add up. Again, the Dodgers, they beat the Phillies yesterday, so they maintain pace with the Phillies in the National League, but of course they continue to get caught by the Padres and Diamondbacks. But we appreciate everybody who's joined us here again after a loss. The Dodgers lose 6-2. Clayton Kershaw looks good. Brusdar Graterol tears his hamstring, and the Dodger offense can't muster anything. So rubber match tomorrow. Gavin Stone on the mound. We'll be back with a live post-game show. I'll be back tomorrow night, I believe, with Matt Moreno tomorrow night. So be sure to plan to join us for that. If you missed it, some cool stuff in the last few days. Monday, we posted a huge deep dive on the farm system. Bruce Kuntz of Dodgers Digest, Justin Lorber of FutureDodgers.com. Both joined me. Tons of content there. We talked Dalton Rushing prior to him getting promoted. So we recorded it the day before he got promoted. So kind of a bummer there, but it posted on Monday. So go check that out. That is Anthony Witrado. I am Jeff Spiegel. As always, folks, we appreciate you joining us. Enjoy the rest of your night. As always, go Dodgers.